Well, I did it. I hit that 100-hour mark 4 days after launch. It was a tough couple of 25-hour-long days of non-stop grinding, but here we are. It's actually been about 2 weeks since I got the early review code, so I could run the game through a couple of hoops. Take it for a test drive, crashed it a couple times, just see how it handles. And it handles pretty dang good. I was expecting this game to be getting solid 8s and 9s across the board. That's how much I enjoyed it. But then, boom, 7, wha-bam, 6. And I'm looking at this thinking, what the heck, what game was I playing? But then I remembered they were handing out 7s to Marvel's Avengers, and I was like, oh, right. Now, Dying Light 2 is by no means this perfect game. Like most open world games these days, the story is passable, but the gameplay, wacky side quests, and characters, that's what carries it so far. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because in the comments of my past video, I got so many people wondering if the game is even worth playing because it scored so low on some sites. Let me make myself clear. I'm all for differing opinions. Perspective is good, but there needs to be more defined lines. For example, most reviewers gave Breath of the Wild a 10 out of 10 for its gameplay alone, because it is that good, even though the story was deemed average by, well, pretty much everyone. In the same way, Dying Light 2 is fantastic gameplay, but its story is pretty average, yet for some reason it's docked serious points in that field. Well, that being said, a lot of games coming out these days feel they need to attain that unattainable bar. They need to innovate to the point of being recognized for what they did forever, and usually that level of innovation ends up in a game being aggressive, trading out fun for ambitious somewhere along the line. So let me tell you that Dying Light 2 was overly ambitious, but only in one aspect, and that, my fine folks, is that it could possibly take 500 hours to 100% beat. Because at hour 100, I ain't seeing a whole lot more to do besides collecting all those murals, notes, and cassette tapes. Now, there is a lot to do in this game. Thing is the game good? Dying Light 2 has got to be one of the most downright fun games I have played in a long time. Not because the story or characters kept me going, but because that gameplay is so dang fine. You don't get that experience in other games. Even Mirror's Edge doesn't hold a candlestick to what this game has achieved, and it just keeps getting better. The grind to become a free-running freak is addicting because you just get more out of the game when you do. Then you combine it with the combat, and that's where the game gets insane. No two fights are the same unless you just dropkick everyone. Hardcore combined with combat makes for some of the most engaging fights, and the melee combat is visceral. You feel every hit on your enemy. You see the drag on your weapon as you smack them across the face. It feels real and brutal. There's also a weapon mod called Fling, and it just makes every weapon a baseball bat. But I did see some people complaining that the game dumbed down the violence. And that is, it's true. The game is for babies now. There's very little blood. It's probably comparable to that of, say, the Super Smash Brothers or My Friend Peppa Pig. The violence is neither noticeable or brutal even one time. And I'm gonna say it. I don't disagree. The story is pretty average, but it's still fun. There were definitely areas that felt out of place and moments that dragged on for a bit too long so that they were just ruined, but for an open world zombie game, it kept my attention pretty well. I actually wanted to finish the game. I wanted to know what happens, and it could be very far-fetched and over the top at times, but hey, that's part of the reason why it's so interesting. One moment you're like, parkour lady flies away. And in the next, they're telling you, hey Aiden, please blow up this entire police base to start an all-out war. This game also has quite the unique spread of personality. And of course, you have the stereotypical gruff cops, the swindlers, over-dramatic nerds. But the game introduces so many characters that are actually fun to engage with because each is so different. Even in the side quests, the characters aren't just there to give you quick cash, the stories are interesting. There are certain characters that have so much to them, moments where drastic events change their entire lives, and in a lot of the situations, you have the final say in what happens. Now let me just quickly put this out here, the soundtrack is great. Every bit of the game has certain music chime in that fits exactly what's happening, not to mention music changes in conversations to foreshadow or build up tension. There's moments where solemn music begins to ramp up and adds so much depth and emotion to situations. In games like this, you just see it. Music does make up most of what creates a memorable moment. On the topic of memorable areas of a game, Dying Light 2 has got to have one of the most insanely unique open worlds I've ever played around in. And I mean, it is a literal playground, maybe even better than this one. Now, you have two massive open areas filled to the brim with detail and so much to do around every corner, not to mention that nearly every single building is accessible in some way or another. You've got this village town starting area, which is region locked for a while until you progress further, but the thing is, I don't even care it's locked. There's so much to do in this area that even when you're ready to move on to the big city, there's still heaps to go back to. And the cool thing is the maps aren't even divided. You can run freely between the two, except, you know, through the toxic sludge way. The city itself is stunning. Every single area is perfectly designed for going stupid fast and finding new routes to take. When you're standing on the top of that tallest tower, you can just take in how unbelievably massive this world is and how much detail they've managed to cram into it. There's only a few open world maps that really stand out nowadays with so many games going that direction, and this one is stunning. But after 100 hours in Aiden's shoes, where am I? That's the real question of this video. And let me tell you, I'm done. Besides the collectibles, of course, those friggin' things are gonna run me up to 500 hours, I'm telling you, but every last side quest is complete. The main story was done in about 30 or so hours, and I've defeated all the bandit camps, done the GRE facilities and anomalies, which, by the way, were way too easy, even on hard. The level scaling feels very weird in some places. I killed an anomaly boss in 2 drop kicks. I got the gold medal in all the parkour challenges. By the way, curse you, Night Runner challenge number 8, you suck. I've also got all the windmills done, even managed to capture one with all the bandits still there somehow, and I redirected all of the water and power to the survivors so I can have springy boing jumps everywhere. After looking at the map and side quests, there is nothing left for me to do, except grind those frickin' cassettes everywhere. But surprisingly to me, since the gameplay is so dang good, I never got bored of playing it. Even after I had done everything, I kept just running around the city, beating up zombies at night just to max out my parkour and combat level, which, by the way, after 100 hours, I'm almost level 9. I probably would have been level 10 if those volatiles didn't keep ruining my night streaks. But there is a part where the game loses a bit of brownie points for me, and that's how much of an RPG game this did not feel like. There were a lot of choices in the game, but over 50% of them just felt underwhelming. They didn't matter. If you chose to spare a guy instead of kill him, they would usually just end up being somewhere later in the game for a quick conversation, and that's it. Even though the whole thing was made out to be a big deciding moment. The game didn't particularly need to push being an RPG, because in the end, a lot of the choices felt very basic. I know you can definitely run as a psychopath, so I might give that a try at some point, but after seeing how things played out, I doubt it'll make too much of a difference besides maybe a new kind of conversation. And that whole giving power and water to one faction or other, it really doesn't do much other than gives you certain benefits around the city. The people in said factions, they don't look at you in a different light. There's no siding with the bandits or really becoming a bad guy. You can be kind of bad in situations. It was kind of like cyberpunk choices. Most of them didn't end in a big bang. At exactly 100 hours, I've become an absolute free-running, drop-kicking, drug-injected wizard, and I'm ready for a new game plus, mainly to experience the game with less bugs. Now, don't take me saying this like it's Cyberpunk or Fallout 76 over here, because it's not anywhere near that tier. But I did have my fair share of quests not working or problems with the game resetting certain events I've already completed. But hey, at least the co-op is pretty fun right now.